few minutes in. I know a few people will start getting trickled in, but we'll go ahead and get started and be mindful of everybody's time today. But welcome everybody for April 2026's Research and Discovery Grand Rounds. Excited to have everybody here as part of our spring series where we're harnessing data or big data, AI, and emerging technology to advance discovery and innovation, a definite big hot topic in our area right now. This is all brought to you with Frontiers, and want to make sure I encourage everybody to leverage all of the resources through Frontiers, including our access to Research and Discovery Grand Rounds and the recordings there. And you get that by going to the website at frontiersctsi.org and becoming a member. So encourage you guys to leverage all of those resources. And then before we get started, I want to remind everybody of the series that we're in. Like I said, we're tapping into all things technology right now and AI resources. And before I introduce our speaker, I do want to have everybody save the date for our May 28th presentation, where we'll be talking about AI-driven wearable interventions. And then in June, we've got it slated for big data in precision medicine. So lots of great insightful presentations coming up. But that brings me to today's session, where we have the privilege of having Dr. Don King, Director of KU Medical Center's Enhanced Artificial Intelligence Center for Human-Centered Research. So Don, welcome. Appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Okay. So everybody, do you see my slide screen?
Looks great.
Okay, cool. Well, happy lunch, everybody. And thanks for having me speak during your lunch hour. So as you said, I'm Dawn King. I'm the director of the Enhanced AI Center for Human-Focused Research at the Med Center. Most of us call it the EAI Center, so you'll see it referred like that throughout the talk, or just simply AI Center to shorten it. But over the next 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes, I'm going to talk about AI and clinical and translational research from an institutional and implementation perspective, not just where the science is going, but what it actually takes to move AI from a promising idea to something trustworthy, usable, and sustainable. And hopefully I can frame for you the work at frame for you the work that the EAI Center is doing and how we're doing this at KU. I joined KUMC at the end of August to help stand up this center. So what I'm sharing today is not a retrospective of everything. It's a snapshot of something that's being built in real time and will change as we learn and grow, especially because the world of AI is moving fast. Let's see. Get this to move forward, figure that out. All right. Something just happened to my slide. Sorry. I actually don't know. I apologize. Are you seeing the screen?
We aren't. You've stopped sharing.
Oh, I don't know how to get back to it. Sorry. Escape. There we go. Well, that definitely ruined the flow. Share desktop to share. Okay, are we back?
We're seeing your desktop and the PowerPoint app. And
It looks like it's in presentation mode, but we're just seeing a white slide, perhaps.
Hmm. I don't know why this is doing this all of a sudden. All I did was try and move the slide forward. Let's see. Let's go to settings again. Stop. Are
Perfect.
we back?
That is good. Yeah,
Okay. Apologies, everybody. Nobody wants to sit and watch that.
we got there. It's all good.
Okay. So, some background about me, about, the things that I've done that relate to translational science and, bringing things from idea to real implementation. I'm a physicist by training. My research was in complex systems related to population dynamics and mass extinction. So, it's sort of that thing that makes, grim conversation at dinner parties, but it also is a field that teaches you how to think about systems that are emergent, adaptive, and occasionally catastrophic. So it turns out that that's a pretty useful in the lens for AI. So before coming here, I was the founding director of the Geoscience and AI Application Lab at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. So at an intelligence agency, we live in a high consequence environment with very little margin for cute mistakes. One of the big projects was the development of a global AI-driven gravity model that we moved from pilot stage development outside of the security firewall into a fully secure production environment. And so having accurate gravity maps is important for human life and safety of navigation, because essentially anything that flies, like planes, including, American that we travel on, uses gravity compensation as one of the main navigation tools when GPS fails. So one lesson for that work, more than anything technical, was whether an AI system actually matters has has very little to do with the model itself, but it has to do whether the data is solid, whether the workflow can absorb it, and whether anybody trusts it. And this is where the governance around it holds up. So that's the stance that I bring to this role, and it's the stance baked into the center. I hope when I move this forward, it doesn't do this again.
It is white.
Yeah. I don't understand why when I touch it, it doesn't move.
Does it advance past the white screen at all for you?
For me, I'm seeing my slide,
Hmm.
and nothing changes. So,
Rats.
um,
If you'd like to try to share the deck with me, I can try to share from my computer.
um, yeah, and I can just tell you to advance. So how do I get it to you? Teams?
Yeah, I would send me a Teams chat if you can, because the file size will probably go faster that way.
Um, Okay.
Got it? Let me just bring that up for you. Does it look right to you? What you're expecting?
Yep. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mhm.
Okay, here we go. Alrighty. So, so here's a quick tour of what I'm going to talk about. I'll start with the AI Center, why it exists, how it's put together, and then we'll walk through our code development services, which is sort of what we actually do day to day. And from there, I'll spend some real time on one case study called CareScript and MD in cognitive neurology, because it's the clearest example I have of what translational AI looks like when you build it around a real care problem instead of just a cool technology. Then we'll shift into human-focused AI programs, sleep medicine, movement disorders, imaging, and fertility. And after that, I will also talk about industry partnerships because eventually every academic medical center has to figure out how to say yes or no to outside vendors without losing their mind. So there's a lot. And I'll finish with a few of the internal tools we're building for ourselves because some of the hardest problems also are inside our own building. So the four questions running underneath all of this are why AI matters, why translational AI, what translational AI actually requires, how we move ideas into practice, and what kind of institutional pathways make that possible. The thread I want you to hear throughout all of this is what it takes to make AI in a setting trustworthy, usable, and sustainable. So those are three words that I'm going to come back to frequently. Next slide. So I want to give some credit to some of our visionary leaders at the center because the center didn't start with me. It started with Jeff Thompson, Associate Vice Chancellor for Research and Data Analytics, and our Chief Research Information Officer at the Med Center. And then Chris Harper as the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer for the Health Information Technology Services on the health and system side. So what that pairing reflects is a recognition that AI at an academic medical center doesn't just live cleanly on one side of the house. The research mission and the health system operate under different systems, different governance, and different priorities. But AI work consistently crosses between those lines. So the center is designed with leadership from both sides from the start so that research-facing AI and health system-facing AI could be coordinated rather than handled in parallel. My role has been to stand up this sort of operational side of that, the services, the programs, the partnership model, and the infrastructure that makes the center something researchers and clinicians can actually engage with. Next slide. I think, can you go to the next slide? No, okay. You could go back. It didn't update. So here's how the work in the center breaks down. There's four buckets and they're all interconnected. None of these buckets stand alone, and a lot of processes between them are repeatable. Um, but co-development is one, and it's sort of a day by day. We partner directly with researchers and clinicians, sometimes from scratch, sometimes parachuting into a project that's already halfway down the road and needs help with validation and deployment. Programs are a longer arc. They're sustained domain-focused efforts where we're building capability over time rather than answering one question and leaving. And then we also want to facilitate external partnerships, how we handle the outside world, essentially, vendors, tools, industry collaborations, all of that, and do this responsibly without bypassing governance at the institution. And underneath all of it is secure infrastructure and governance, which is, typically seen as some of the least glamorous buckets when it comes to AI work. But it's the one that determines whether the other three actually work. So put together these four institutional pathways, the path from a promising idea to something that actually holds up in practice is a main driver of what the center is supporting and doing. Next slide. So let me start with data in our co-development service, because data is where most of these projects actually live or die. And the truth is, the most sophisticated AI method in the world won't save you if the data is not ready. Excuse me. And ready is doing a, ready means that there's a ton of work involved in curating data. And it means you can find data, you're allowed to use it, it represents the population you care about, and it's clean enough that a model can learn from it without memorizing noise. So this part of our service help teams work through all of that: data discovery, readiness assessment, governance, and ingestion. And if a project has a quick question, we try and keep it quick, but structure is there to reduce friction, not create another queue. Next slide. On the data side, once the data side is in a good place, the next question is the AI work itself, the methods, the architecture, the path to deployment, and such. And a lot of what we do upstream is to collaborate to figure out if they even need AI in the first place. And sometimes the answer is yes. And sometimes the answer is that, say, a regression model could be faster, cheaper, and more defensible. And that's a perfectly good answer. But our job, or my job, is to help get that conversation right before anyone spends 6 months building out the wrong thing. And from there, we help with method selection, the feature engineering involved, validation planning, architecture review, deployment strategy, and resourcing. Essentially, the whole arc or life cycle of AI development. Not because we're trying to be everyone's AI shop, but because handling a clinical team and a model without surrounding scaffolding is how you end up with very expensive use cases, or essentially a paperweight that sits there and does nothing. Next slide. So this one's about governance, and I know that word alone can clear a room because it's not the glamorous part. But when I say governance, I don't mean paperwork. I mean the real question is the model doing what we said it would do? Is it still doing that 6 months from now? Who's responsible when it's wrong? Can we audit it? Can we turn it off? These are questions that separate an AI project from a capability. So every engagement that we take on has this built-in thinking from the start, like privacy, security, monitoring, drip checks, human oversight, and clear accountability. And here's a line that I like to come back with a lot. Governance isn't there to slow AI down. It's what lets AI move forward credibly. So without it, you don't get to scale. You just kind of get to hope that it works. So this is the piece that turns AI work into something trustworthy. And those are the first of the three words that I mentioned up front, and it essentially starts here. Next slide. So that was the model. So I'll make this concrete with an example, because these service menu slides can only get us, so far in an understanding of the kinds of things that we can do with that sort of perspective. So the clearest example I have of this code development in practice is a tool in development almost ready to launch at the Med Center called CareScript MD. And here the credit needs to start with Jeff Burns, the co-director of the KU Alzheimer's Disease and Research Center, who designed the concept, the clinical vision, and the workflow itself. This is his idea built around how cognitive care actually needs to happen. And then Lav Patel is my manager and data and AI infrastructure lead in the center. And he's been leading the platform and AI engineering side. And he's implemented that vision inside the MedCenter environment, the technical build, the data pipeline, all the AI components, and getting it through security reviews and all of the processes to get it to run live. So this is where my team is supporting the translational AI side, making sure what gets built fits the clinical problem and has a path to real use. The important thing to notice is where this started. It didn't start with AI technology looking for a problem. It started with a care delivery bottleneck and a clinician who had thought hard about how to solve it. So, which is truly, I think, how these things should start. Next slide. So these are from Jeff, so hopefully I don't bungle them up too bad. But I'm going to talk about some of the bottleneck in cognitive neurology, specifically Alzheimer's, where something genuinely remarkable is happening. So for most of the history in this field, the headline was failure. It had a 99.6% failure rate in clinical trials, and the first drug approval came in 96. The second in 2003, and then 20 years of almost nothing. And then in the last handful of years, the proverbial dam sort of broke, and disease modifying therapies started to emerge. So a blood-based diagnostic approved just this past May, and there's 180 plus active trials and prevention studies underway. Medicine has achieved more in the last few years than the entire previous history of Alzheimer's research, and that's not a hyperbole, that's the field, which is wonderful, but it's also a problem. Next slide. Because here's what scientific process doesn't do on its own. It doesn't reach patients. The blood tests exist, but primary care isn't using it at scale. The treatments are coming, but specialist capacity hasn't moved. And if you live somewhere that isn't within a short drive of a medical center, your path to real cognitive evaluation is slow, fragmented, or in some cases, it's just absent. So we have the science, we don't have the delivery capacity to match it. That's a translational problem. It's not that we don't know what to do, it's that we can't get it to enough people. Next slide. So this slide sort of landed hard for me, so I'll let it sit for a second, because here's what, sorry. Um, I'm losing my spot. Sorry. Here's what scientific process doesn't do on its own. It's that it doesn't reach patients. And the blood tests exist, but primary care isn't using it at scale yet. The treatments are coming, but specialist capacity hasn't moved, which I think I just said. So, um, yeah, I lost my place. I apologize. Um, but it is an access crisis, and so we have progress and we don't have capability to deliver it adequately. Next slide. So I think I just bungled up Jeff's slides. So here's the reality. It takes typically and on average 3.5 years for a diagnosis. That's 3.5 years of primary care visits, then a referral, then a wait, then testing, then another wait, and then a follow-up. And for many families, by the time they have an answer, the window where an intervention could have mattered has already closed. So if that's the pathway, then AI in this space isn't just a novelty, it could be a workforce multiplier. And it's a way to extend expertise that we don't have enough of and cannot hire our way out of. Next slide. So that brings us to the question that started this whole project. Can we capture cognitive neurology expertise and a reproducible workflow and distribute it into primary care? Can we, for a lack of a better word, bottle it? But I want to be careful here because, just bottling it could be a provocative word. We're not trying to replace specialists. The reality is that there aren't enough of them. So replacing them isn't the problem. The question is whether the structured parts of their reasoning, the intake, the synthesis, the documentation, and the next step planning can be made portable enough to reach patients who can be portable enough to reach patients who never even see a specialist sometimes. Next slide. So that's what the CareScript MD is trying to do. And here I want to clarify what it is and what it isn't. So Jeff designed this around 3 primary principles, and it's worth stating them plainly because they drove every decision that followed: speed, access, and minimal friction for the clinician. Functionally, it's not an AI scribe. It's a clinical workflow platform. It guides a structured intake aimed at a specialist level cognitive evaluation. It then drafts a note aligned with the CMS billing code, which is the code for comprehensive cognitive assessment in care planning, and one that's chronically underused because the documentation requirements are very painful. They're very long and labor intensive. So it supports integration of cognitive testing and biomarker results as well. And then it suggests next diagnostic steps and referral pathways. So when I say it's not another AI scribe, that is what I mean. The point isn't to write a faster note. The point is to extend a specialist-informed workflow that into places it doesn't currently reach quickly or accessibly and without adding friction to a clinician's day that's already too full. Next slide. So Mechanically, CareScript MD works essentially in 3 steps: capture, transcribe, and generate. There's audio during the visit, so there's no typing. The AI converts speech to text. A structured draft note comes out of the end, ready for the clinician to review. So that is the minimal friction piece made concrete. That structured note contains is built from guided structured questions and questionnaires that get input during the audio transcribe session. So it doesn't change what the clinician does, it just helps accelerate that. But the design decision that actually matters too is that it was built for team-based care and not one provider, one microphone. Um, a nurse can do it at initial intake, and that context carries forward into the clinician visit. That reflects how cognitive care actually happens, which is almost never with one provider doing everything in 30 minutes. Um, and it's also how you get to the speed and access piece. If the workflow can't start before the clinician walks in, the specialist time gets used only for what the specialist can do. Next slide. So a fair question at this point is, why are we building this ourselves? There are commercial AI scribes. Several of them are generally good. I think really there are 4 reasons. As first, it's clinician design and built by a cognitive neurologist and his care team, with every module mapped to a specific billing code and clinical pathway. And you don't get that by reverse engineering a generic product. Second, it's team-based and not a single provider. A lot of tools out there assume one clinician, one mic, one note. Cognitive care doesn't look like that. Third, it's currently institution owned and the data stays at the med center. No per fee encounters have to be paid to a third party. We control the model, the pipeline, the roadmap. That matters for cost, trust, and the ability to actually steer this thing in the direction that we want to. And then fourth, it's a platform. Cognitive assessment is the first use case, but the architecture is extensible. Wellness visits, advanced care planning, or other structured workflows can all live on the same foundation. So we're not trying to compete with commercial scribes. We're building infrastructure right now that doesn't exist. And those 4 choices, clinician design, team-based, institution-owned platform, are really about one thing. They're what makes this sustainable over time. Instead of a pilot that works for a short period of time and then quietly disappears. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to shift gears because that was, one of our wonderful examples of, some code development that we have done. But there's another major mode that the AI Center supports, and that's our AI programs, human-focused AI programs. So I want to draw a sharp distinction here because the word program can get thrown around loosely, but a program in our model is not a project with a nicer name on it. It is a sustained faculty-led effort in a specific research or clinical domain where we're building AI capability over time. So that means shared infrastructure, reusable data, repeatable pathways, and a team that accumulates expertise instead of starting from zero every grant cycle. So the reason this matters is translational AI can't run entirely on one-off requests. Like some domains need depth, and programs are how we build that depth to help make these AI capabilities more sustainable. Next slide. So becoming a program isn't complicated, but it's also not automatic. So the short version is you need a real problem, a committed lead, some initial work to build on, and an appetite for something that grows rather than ends. On the commitment side, program leads take on some real expectations. They must coordinate the work, engage regularly with the center and our staff, data scientists and cloud engineers, and pursue actual outputs. That includes submitting at least 2 AI-focused collaborative proposals per year. And that's not there to make anyone's lives harder. It's because programs that don't pursue funding and get funding don't tend to be programs for very long because it's not a sustainable choice. But in exchange for those programs get sustained support, AI expertise, infrastructure, HPC access, governance, and coordination across these proposals and publications. Next slide. So here's where this model is taking shape right now. There are 4 program areas with very different clinical and scientific domains. We have sleep medicine, quantitative imaging, movement disorders, and fertility medicine. And the thing that I want you to notice is not just the topic diversity, it's the pattern as we move forward. Like in every case, there is faculty leadership, a real domain problem, and a pathway toward a durable translational impact. So I'm going to walk you through each of the programs briefly, because each one is at different stages, but I'm going to start with sleep. Next slide. So this AI enhanced sleep medicine program is probably the clearest example of the program model in action right now. Dr. Diego Mazzotti leads it, and it's organized around 3 pillars: how we represent and integrate sleep data, how we extract knowledge from it, and how we scale it across sites. What makes this a program and not a project is that those 3 pillars support multiple translational directions at once. The team, Sonia Misra, Matt Grattan, come from Diego's group, and Grace Pochowski and Love Patel come from the EI Center, and we are all building infrastructure that is a lot that can plug into a lot of different scientific questions all at once. Next slide. But the main reason that it can support multiple directions is this foundation, the sleep disorders database. So this database has been curated, with questionnaires, sleep study reports, PSG data, EHR data, and clinical notes, PAP therapy data, and wearable data, and all of it's pulled together, governed, and sitting inside the KUMC digital research platform, and is enabled to do high performance computing using Azure Databricks. So this is kind of what I mean when I say an institutional pathway. The goal isn't to build one model. The goal is to establish a research-ready backbone that supports many questions for many years. Building that takes time, and the building of the infrastructure, of course, isn't glamorous work, but it is what makes everything that is going to be glamorous in the AI world, and downstream possible. Next slide. So here's what multiple directions looks like. So there are several current and upcoming projects that the program is supporting. Um, so there's the EHR-based identification of obstructive sleep apnea across sites, ECG-based phenotyping, physiological markers for cardiovascular risk in sleep, transformer or foundation models on raw PSG data, LLM-based symptom extraction from clinical notes, and AI screening agents for study recruitment. All 6 of these projects share one foundation, and that's the leverage you get from a program structure instead of a pile of one-off projects. Next slide. So the second program, quantitative imaging biomarkers, is led by Anil Chauhan in partnership with the Center for Advancement of Quantitative Imaging. We'll call it CACI, I think. The current active direction is using longitudinal CT and MRI imaging to study tissue level effects of GLP-1 exposure, which is a timely question because these drugs are everywhere right now, and we still don't have great quantitative answers about what they're doing to body composition at the tissue level. But the longer play is bigger than just the one drug study that we're focusing on. The goal is a reusable pathway from curated imaging data to research-ready quantitative biomarkers, something that can support chronic disease research across many conditions, not just the one that we're looking at today. Next slide. So here's how that pipeline works in practice. So CACI is identifying cohorts, and then the data is curated using the AI Center infrastructure. We supplied structured imaging and clinical data sets, and then they test and evaluate. The technical pieces matter in this because there's BIDS-based organization, automated segmentation, liver CT style quantification of visceral fat, subcutaneous fat, skeletal muscle, and derived metrics. But what matters more for institutional infrastructure is the repeatability. Once the pipeline exists, the next biomarker study doesn't start from zero. And that's what turns this curated data into grant competitiveness, industry collaborations, and a durable research capability. Next slide. So the next 2 programs are brand new programs that we've decided to kick off. And this third program is in moving disorders, which is led by Dr. Hannes Davos. And the core idea is using video to characterize movement, gait stability, and tremor in conditions like Parkinson's. So it's multimodal, pulling in physiological signals, and there's a digital twin component being developed to support adaptive, personalized rehabilitation. The long-term vision is a telehealth-friendly assessment pathway so patients who can't easily get to a specialty clinic can still get meaningfully evaluated and get a road to recovery. So this is a real clinical access problem where we think AI is a way to extend expertise. Next slide. So the next program in development is AI and for fertility medicine. And this is some of the most practical AI decision support work I've seen. One piece is helping to find viable sperm in men who have almost none. A surgical procedure where specialists search through tissue samples looking for just a few usable cells often takes hours. So another piece is helping to pick single sperm cell to inject into an egg during IVF, and then embryo selection. Also, to help identify which embryos are most likely to result in a healthy pregnancy, along with this provides a broader decision support across the IVF process. The translational case is strong, and it's also deeply human because fertility care is expensive, emotionally exhausting, and access is uneven. Every cycle that could have worked but didn't because of avoidable variability is a real cost to a real family. So even modest improvements here matter. Yeah, that's bottom line. Modest improvements matter. Um, but this is a program that has a clear vision that we're getting grounded in the data collection right now. Next slide. Okay, so I've described two of the center's 4 pillars. The last one is about industry and external partnerships. So we're going to shift um, because there's a whole ecosystem of external tools and vendor platforms and industry collaborators and institutions increasingly need a credible way to engage with that. So without a structured pathway, these kinds of opportunities can be harder to evaluate consistently. So there's governance questions, ownership questions, and integration questions all have to get answered somewhere, and it helps to have a defined place where that happens. So part of what we would like to provide at the center is a structured front door, a repeatable process for evaluating, routing, and implementing external AI opportunities without bypassing governance. Next slide. So one thing that's become really clear to me over the last few months, and this was not obvious to me in day one, is that research-facing AI partnerships often blur boundaries that used to be handled separately, at least at the different institutions that I typically work in. So a tool can have a research use case and still require health system connectivity. And because Epic connected data and operational dependencies, the health system must be involved. It's not just a med center problem anymore. And that requires a lot of coordination across the research and the health system because the technical reality of the way these tools are implemented doesn't respect org chart lines. So my leadership is building a new coordination space around that. And honestly, that is going to make the tool selection turn out to be easier. The harder part has been developing this institutional model between the organizations to get research products launched. Next slide. So the first real test case to this is Tempus, Tempus Link, and we're keeping the scope of all the product. Tempus offers many products, but deliberately narrow in this first case because that's how we learn how to make this a reality. And the problem we're trying to help with is clinical trial matching. So screening participants for trial is still largely manual and fragmented, and a lot of eligibility information is buried in clinical notes and pathology reports. So the current tools don't do much with that. Because of this, patients can miss trials that they qualify for, and trials miss patients that they need. So the Tempus link uses AI to match participants to trials using both structured and unstructured clinical data improve cohort feasibility, and accelerate the accrual for trials already open. And so currently my center is leading the technical integration of this tool, and we're coordinating timelines, governance, compliance, and future monitoring within the health system. Next slide. So I only have a couple more slides, but I think I have 10 minutes. Kind of lost some time because of the whole slide debacle at the beginning. But so I'll just, say this really quickly. The last thing is that there's an internal capacity building as well that has to be considered. And part of the center's job is supporting AI work across the institution. But another part is building within the center itself, operations, the tools, and the way we coordinate and scale support. And so some of that internal operational work is also AI. And three early examples is a product developed by our wonderful data concierge uh, person, Anjanette, with a chatbot that will serve to guide informatics resources, workflows, and how to access things. Faculty reporting, the fact agent for an investigator matching tools, and an investigator connect that looks at studies and connects investigators within the system. I was going to walk through each one of them, but I'm not for the sake of time. Um, but this is, a point of that, of a way to make AI usable for sustainable operations. So a center that's slow or hard to engage with isn't actually helping anyone, no matter how good the work is. So these tools are part of how we make the center usable and at the scale it needs to run. So I'm going to ask you to move forward like 3 slides. Yeah, thank you. So I'll just pull this all together. If there's one idea that I want you to take away, it's this, that translational AI requires more than models. It requires institutional pathways. It requires co-development that starts from real problems, sustained programs that build depth over time, responsible partnerships that don't trade governance for speed, and internal capacity that lets the center itself keep up with the demand it's creating. And those 3 words that I kept coming back to, trustworthy, usable, and sustainable, that's really what this center is trying to be a home for. The goal is not AI activity for its own sake. There's plenty of that going around. The goal is trustworthy, usable, and sustainable translational AI inside a real institutional setting. And that's the thing that's hard to build, and it's the thing that we're trying to build here. And then next slide, I'll just leave you with these are, I think these slides will be shared, so you could go back and look at those tools if you wanted to, and links to our websites where you can get more information. Next slide. And our data concierge contact information. And that's what I have. So thank you for your time. And I think there may be time for one question. Apologies.
Wow, thank you, Dawn. We can open it up to questions. Feel free to put it in the chat or come off of mute, and we'll try to address what we can.
I have a question. Oh,
Hi, yes.
comment first. Well, that was an absolutely wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. I'm at UMKC School of Medicine. and the resources, the clinical problems that you were addressing, it was pretty amazing to watch what you're planning to do, and we wish you success. And so we just want to know, we know this is a KU centered project. So is there a possibility to, test some of these tools in other sites, for example, at some of our rural sites? We have access to a number of rural sites in Missouri, obviously, as opposed to KC, especially with respect to the cognitive assessment tools. I know that's in the planning stage, so just wondered where that was.
Yeah, so it's actually in the testing phase and just waiting for security review, and will be deployed as soon as it finishes that. So, and I do believe, if yes, I know that it is in Jeff's pathway to do this, and I'm sure that, if you'd like to talk, I'm sure he's happy to talk to you about this. 100%.
Is he online? Just looking. Not sure.
I don't know, but if you,
I'll get his email. Thank you.
yeah, if you shoot me a message, um, I can get you, with that description, I'll get you two connected. If you
Okay.
want. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Questions or comments?
I probably could have showed her tool slide.
Well, that'll be on the website though, so we'll make sure everybody gets the link and we can lead everybody to the access. But this was exciting. There was a lot of tools demonstrating how we can increase access to research. So this was well timed, and we really appreciate your time. We'll have the recording of this in short order on the Frontiers website. And then if you have any questions directly for Dr. Don King, please let us know and we'll get those routed to her. But we really appreciate your presentation and your time and effort here, and we look forward to it. Everybody, we will see you in May's session to continue on with our data information. Appreciate it so much. Have a great one.
All right. Thank you.